In this installment of GURPSifying the Bestiary, I would like to cover a Pathfinder monster that I really like. I remember opening up the Occult Bestiary PDF for the first time, and upon seeing this image I thought that there is no way that this monster is boring. And I was right. It is very interesting both in terms of lore, abilities and looks, so this is a perfect candidate for a video. In short, the Omnipath are aquatic creatures related to the aboleths. Possessing immense telepathic powers, they serve as information and communication hubs between the aboleths, veiled masters, and creatures enslaved by them. They can create a telepathic mesh that connects multiple creatures from across the world, share senses with them, and even assume direct control. And, of course, they have this cool triple-jawed mouth. In Pathfinder, the Omnipath have some innate spell-like abilities and also innate psychic spell casting. I have covered my take on psychic magic in GURPS before, but if you don't like it, it's easy to replace with psionics. Let's start with the body. The Omnipath is 25 feet long and weighs 2 tons. This corresponds to size modifier +4, strength 28 and HP 31. It seems to be very agile and tough, so let's give it dexterity +3 and health +4, and even FP +5. Unlike the aboleth, the Omnipath does not have any tentacles, so I will give it no manipulators. It's also serpentine, so I will give it double jointed, injury tolerance no neck, and enhanced move to water. The skin is tough and slippery. I will give the Omnipath DR3 with tough skin and slippery 3. Their eyes are clearly on the sides of the heads, so that's going to be peripheral vision. Let's also give it nictitating membrane 2, that's the level necessary to remove the base -2 to vision underwater. I will also give them infravision, though realistically speaking it doesn't work that well underwater. Since this is a fully aquatic creature, I will give it no legs aquatic, pressure support 3, speak underwater, and temperature tolerance 3 to cold. Now, as far as I know, the Pathfinder aboleths did not get their own book, like Lords of Madness for D&D 3.5, so some biological features have not been expanded upon. For example, the Omnipath has the mucus cloud ability just like the aboleth, and since they are related creatures, I will steal some metabolic features from the D&D aboleth. For example, breathing. While the Omnipath in this book can only breathe water, in D&D aboleth actually breathe mucus that they exude. This mucus requires food and water to produce and dries up into a hard shell without water, forcing the aboleth to enter a state of hibernation. I will give the Omnipath the same ability. The mucus itself will look as follows. When underwater, the Omnipath exudes a mucus cloud. Any creature in the same hex as the Omnipath that breathes in this mucus must make a successful health roll or lose the ability to breathe through air and gain the ability to breathe water for 30 minutes times the margin of failure. But in addition to that, I will give the Omnipath doesn't breathe and dependency to water, with a special limitation that makes it enter hibernation. The Omnipath's survival depends on the mucous membrane it creates around itself. This mucus requires water to produce, so it dries up quickly on land. The Omnipath loses 1 HP per minute outside of water. To stop this damage, it must immerse itself in water for at least a minute. When it loses 1 times its HP due to this, it enters a state of hibernation. It remains aware of the surroundings, it can see and hear, but it loses its tactile and olfactory senses. The mucous membrane hardens up, granting the aboleth DR6, but also completely paralyzing it. This long dreaming is considered to be fate worse than death, as the Omnipath is in constant pain. It does not have to breathe, eat or drink, and if this membrane is penetrated, it will bleed out and die quickly. Just like the aboleth, the Omnipath has the slime ability. The aboleth used to have it as a follow-up to its tentacle attack, but here I will give it as a follow-up to the tail attack. Before rolling to hit with the tail, the Omnipath can spend 1 FP to coat it in slime. If this attack hits, then it deals additional 1d follow-up toxic damage with an onset of 1 minute, unless the victim resists with health -3. Then every minute for 10 more cycles the damage repeats. being moistened with cool fresh water negates this cyclic damage, and each cycle can be resisted with health -3. The skin of the victim gradually becomes a clear, slimy membrane, and after losing 1/3 of his HP to this toxic damage, the victim's natural DR with tough skin becomes reduced by 2, to the minimum of 0, until he heals above this threshold. Speaking of the tail, it's going to be a crushing striker with cannot parry and weak. Also, see these bioluminescent things on it? That's the illumination perk. I will steal the dietary requirements from the aboleth, but change them a bit. This reduced consumption for with food only, restricted diet carnivore, odious racial habit eats sapient beings, and that's it. I will not give them the plankton strainer feature, but I will give it likes eating eyes as a quirk. Just like the aboleth, Omnipaths are unaging. Now there are some abilities that the aboleth do not possess. First, I gave the Omnipath magic resistance 2 with improved. Second, they have immunity to mind control, their minds are way too different from normal beings. Third, I gave them regeneration with a regular time. Pathfinder also gives them immunity to electricity for some reason. And I'll actually leave that in as DR versus electricity. Maybe the Omnipath's mind requires a great deal of bioelectricity to function, or they have adapted to various electrical fish species, who knows. In terms of their mentality, I gave them IQ +5, and Kalos, I did not give them no sense of humor because that's detrimental to their ability to impersonate others. But now let's get to the unique stuff. First, the triple-jawed bite. An easy and simple way would be to just give it extra striking strength with the bite, but that's not fun. I could give it extra mouth too, but that would make all 3 mouths the same, and they obviously different size and jaw strength. So instead I went this way. The middle set of jaws is a natural weapon that cannot parry and deals thrust cutting damage at -1 per die. The inner set of jaws is an identical natural weapon but with -2 per die. In addition to that, I gave them extra mouth too, only for the purpose of opting for a free grapple on extra hit, to make these extra natural weapons behave like bites. Basically, the extra mouth work like pincers. Finally, I also added extra attack too, limited to only these extra jaws. Obviously, I had to apply a nuisance effect to represent logistical difficulties. If the Omnipath beats someone with its outer jaws, then the middle and inner jaws can only target the same target. Then we have another unique ability, the telepathic mesh. This is going to be difficult, just take a look at the stat block. An Omnipath can form telepathic connections between a select group of creatures. This ability functions only for creatures that are on the same plane as the Omnipath and less than 0.1 light-year away. Only aboleths, veiled masters, and creatures dominated by an aboleth or a veiled master can be added to the telepathic mesh, up to 99 individuals. Adding a creature to the mesh requires that creature to be willing or helpless, the Omnipath being able to observe it directly or through the senses of another member of the telepathic mesh, and the Omnipath making a successful IQ roll after a minute of concentration. Omnipath can broadcast thoughts and sensory experience to the rest of the telepathic mesh, and read their surface thoughts with no roll required. In addition, it can possess any creature in the telepathic mesh as per the possession advantage with a telecontrol enhancement. Omnipaths do not need to physically touch their hosts, but their IQ roll takes long-distance modifiers. When possessing a member of the telepathic mesh, the Omnipath can freely access the memories of the host at any time. To recall a specific fact from the subject's memories requires a straight IQ roll. When the Omnipath possesses a new body, it may choose to forget any of its current skills and use the points this frees up and any unspent points to learn any skills known by the host, at up to host's level -1. Skills forgotten in order to learn these new skills are gone. Skills learned from the host will move from body to body with the Omnipath. This is a psychic ability that requires the user to have full control over their thoughts and emotions to use. They cannot use this ability if they are berserk, if their emotions or thoughts are being externally controlled. if they are suffering a shock penalty, and 5 seconds after getting stunned or frightened. In addition, any active use, reading thoughts, broadcasting thoughts, possessing a new host, requires an all-out concentrate maneuver. With that done, there are only 2 abilities left. First, innate spellcasting. In this case, the Omnipath has both normal spell-like abilities and psychic spellcasting. Let's simplify this by giving it 11 levels of Psychic Sorcerer's Empowerment. By default, this only opens up improvisation, but Omnipaths can also learn spells as alternative abilities. I am going to ignore the spell-like abilities as they seem to be redundant. The innate psychic spellcasting covers them. Finally, being repositories of knowledge that never forget anything, the Omnipaths can rummage in their memories to use mental skills that they do not normally possess. I will give them photographic memory and 3 levels of wild talent limited to mental skills. That should work. And here's the result. The stat block is huge. There are many complex abilities, but I really like this creature, and it's not really Pathfinder exclusive. You can use it in your D&D-like games, and in any D&D setting. And if you do not like the psychic spellcasting framework, you can just replace it with psionics, but I like psychic magic. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.